Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Gaming Weeks podcast, your official podcast from analogstickgaming.com. Of course, if you don't know me by now, I'm one of the co-owners of Analog Stick Gaming, Jordan, and to my right, as always, you can find the founder himself, Jeff. How are you doing, Jeff? As we hear banter scrambling across the floor there.
Yeah, pretty much. Not too bad. It's the weather has been so effed. There was like one morning there was like no snow, and then we wake up the next morning and there's like 1.5 feet, and then later that afternoon it's half gone.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's weird. Had to get some tires replaced, so that was like $600, and
yeah.
Oh, it's been a nightmare. But other than that, drowning in video games right now. There has been
Me too.
So many video games. I got to fight them back and be like, no, I don't want you.
And we will be talking about many, many video games today, of course. But before we do that, at time of recording, later today, there is a huge wrestling event, or at least night one of a huge wrestling event that is known as WrestleMania, of course. Yep. And we are big wrestling fans, so I think we should do some predictions. How do you feel about that?
Sure thing. All right. So, yeah, WrestleMania 42 is split into 2 nights. I still don't understand why they don't do night 1 as Raw and night 2 as SmackDown.
Yeah, like split it up between the shows. Yeah.
Yeah, like I don't know. I kind of want that Raw versus SmackDown rivalry again, because like they used to do that even during like the drafts where they'd have like Team Raw and Team SmackDown, and the next. They need to do that shit again.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
You can hear the cat wheel in the background. That is Nyx. She's going Mach 5. She's going so fast that it almost feels like her back end's lifting up, like gravity is just completely like stopped, and all that stuff. It's so funny. She's just a riot. All right, so night 1 in no particular order. All right, so we have The Vision, which is Logan Paul and Austin Theory teaming up with IShowSpeed versus the Usos and LA Knight.
I'm pretty certain the Usos and LA Knight are going to win this. And the reason they're going to win it is because Speed is going to do something that causes them to win, in my opinion.
I don't know. Like, I think that the attention that's been given to Speed with kind of like his training and kind of that kind of stuff is, I think he's actually going to pin LA Knight.
Interesting. Okay.
Like, I think there'll be something set up where like, I don't know, like Logan Paul does something to like LA Knight or whatever, and then he points to Speed. He's like, go do that, whatever. And he does his thing and then pins LA Knight. I think that honestly, just Celeb Mania, I think, is just going to kind of run wild on this particular match.
Yeah, maybe.
So I do think that The Vision and IShowSpeed get.
So my reasoning for thinking the other way is that Speed never wanted to help The Vision in the first place. He's kind of been like the reluctant person,
which is why I think he'll get the reluctant pin on LA Knight.
Yeah, good point. Good point.
Either that or like Usos will do the kick, like LA Knight will be like laying down, and Usos will do the kick and hit IShowSpeed, and he'll fall on LA Knight, and then
oh god, can you imagine?
Like, and then that's how he gets the pin.
That's going to be interesting to see.
I mean, hell, like the pass out pin. I mean, that's how Ethan Page won the NXT championship in NXT.
Yeah,
he had that pass out pin.
Yeah. Well, what do we have up next?
That's the only match. Through all 2 nights. They just redo it the next night. It's like that live episode of ER.
A 5-hour match.
Yeah, exactly. So we have Jacob Fatu versus Drew McIntyre in the unsanctioned match.
Yeah.
I think that this
basically just means this is going to be one hell of a fight. That's what this means.
I mean, so here's the thing. Drew has been filming his commitments already. for Highlander. He's got more after WrestleMania, but not as much. So he's been balancing it just fine. So the match could go either way. But I think that this is a star-making performance for Jacob Fatu. I think that it is to put him even more into the mainstream. So
yeah, I would agree with that. And also, this is his first real moment to shine, right? Like a big singles match at WrestleMania, one of the more well-built matches, because we'll talk about it later, but there's been a lot of issues in the build to WrestleMania, and there's several matches on this card that people don't care about, quite frankly. But this one, I think, I'm with you. It could go either way, but my gut tells me that Jacob Fatu is probably going to win because Drew doesn't need the win. Drew also could be disappearing at some point to do more Highlander things, even kind of, you know, you don't know if he's going to have to do any pickup stuff later and things like that. So I think the win benefits Jacob more here. And especially if we end up with a situation where Roman is potentially the champion, and I don't know, like, we'll talk about that match later, but if we end up with a situation where Roman's the champion, imagine Jacob Fatu against Roman, you know, like that would be a hell of a rivalry. So I'm with you. I think Jacob Fatu wins this match.
And so, like, if I was booking this in like the trying to get my focus here. If I was booking this like old school WWE,
yes,
I would have it where Jacob and Drew are fighting or whatever, and then all of a sudden, like, something happens. I don't know if it's Drew, it's like, hey, look, whatever, like that, and then it shows the security footage for when Jacob was attacked, and it's not Drew. And
that would be interesting.
And then that distracts Jacob, and then Drew gets the win. But
that would actually be really interesting. There is one other way that I could see this match potentially going, and it would be controversial, but I wouldn't be against it. And that is some sort of double knockout type of situation where it's just such a hellacious fight, and then something happens where they both go off the stage through a table or something, and neither of them can get to their feet in a 10 count, you know, or something like that. Like, I could see this ending as a no contest as well. Like, I just because it's something different and because of the rivalry they've had.
If that was Raw, if that was like a SmackDown episode, sure. But I think with WrestleMania, you kind of need the winner.
You need the definitive. Yeah, I'd agree with that overall. And like I said, I do think Jacob Fatu, but I wouldn't be disappointed if Drew wins either. So,
all right. The next one is the big women's tag team match. Now, the one thing that has been rumored, however, there has been, I guess, some proof behind it, and that is that Brie Bella will not have Nikki in her corner because Nikki is still injured, and apparently that replacement, if you don't want to skip ahead, just maybe please skip ahead
for a few minutes because I know what's coming.
So apparently Paige is going to be Brie Bella's tag team partner, and apparently she was seen in the back going over the rehearsals. So, I mean, that's going to get a massive pop.
It is.
The problem with the Brie's winning then is if Nikki is good to come back, does Paige just relinquish the belt?
I'm assuming they can do some sort of rivalry between the two, right? Kind of like the Naomi Jade Cargill thing. They can kind of do that with Paige and Nikki Bella. I think So Paige, as far as we know, has definitely signed. So that part has been confirmed. I wouldn't be shocked by this. Like, if Nikki really isn't good to go, which it sounds like she isn't.
Yeah, she is not
then
medically cleared. She was
Yeah.
even at the Hall of Fame. She was wearing a boot. So
Yeah. Then it's kind of like, well, we're in a situation where they've built towards this quite big match for the women. Let's be honest. Like,
Yeah.
this is quite a big match at Mania for the women. And yeah, I just think they needed somebody big to replace Nikki, you know, and who bigger than Paige? Because let's remember, yes, Paige has wrestled outside of WWE, but for her last few years in WWE, they didn't allow her to wrestle because of various injuries and things.
yeah,
So having her come back to actually wrestle will get a major pop. It will get a major reaction. And yeah, I'm really not sure about which way this match goes, to be honest.
I think it goes Bailey and Lyra win.
Interesting. Okay.
Because they like, I don't think the Bellas win because I think that the injury just kind of throws too much in there.
I agree.
And Charlotte and Alexa have had the belt already. The Irresistible Forces just should be written off TV. And then you've got Bailey and Lyra, like, who kind of had their WrestleMania matches kind of screwed last year.
Yes, they did.
So yeah, I think that they
so
win.
This could almost be like the making it right for them, right? Because they were supposed to. Yeah. True. I'll go with you on that one because I'm not sure. So I'll go with Bailey and Lyra as well.
So we have AJ Lee versus Becky Lynch. I think for this rivalry to continue or at least kind of come to somewhat of a standstill, I think Becky Lynch has to win.
Yeah, I think it depends how they're going with it, right? Like, if they're trying to continue the rivalry, then Becky Lynch has to win.
No, I think if they're looking to continue it, AJ wins. I think if they're looking for AJ to continue, AJ to move on to other things, I think Becky has to win.
Really? I kind of see it the other way. Like, because to me, at the moment, we're in a situation where if Becky wins, there's then going to be that question of like, they've both beat each other now, you know, who is really the better person kind of thing.
Well, AJ's 3-0 right now on Becky.
Yeah, true.
So I don't know. I just think Becky wins. I think that this allows then AJ to kind of go and do the matches that she's wanted to do without their being belt.
I think it depends on what their plan is for AJ, because my argument is Becky's had that belt before.
Yeah.
And I don't think that Becky having the belt helps either the belt or her. Whereas I think that although AJ doesn't need the belt, I think that because of her legacy in the industry, she does elevate that belt to another level, and there could be some interesting rivalries around that going forward.
Yeah, I think Becky wins this one. Just because it's time for Becky to get a win over AJ.
Yeah, true. True, because otherwise it's kind of like, what's the point, right? Like, why are we redoing it a fourth time? Unless, I can kind of understand that. I'm gonna go with my gut feeling that AJ wins, just because I don't think they would have her lose in her first WrestleMania back, especially when we don't really know how many WrestleManias she's actually gonna have. So yeah, I'll go with an AJ win for that one.
All right. We have Seth Rollins versus Gunther. Now, the one thing that has been smartly avoided on this particular bout is that Gunther hasn't really brought up the retiring angle. So he's not the new legend killer, essentially, going into the storyline. But I think that WWE may still be sticking to the original booking of Seth Rollins versus Braun Breaker, which is probably Seth still winning. So
Yes, I agree.
I think Seth does win.
I agree.
I just because I don't see
So,
Gunther winning.
so the reason I think so this was clearly a thrown together match. This has now been confirmed, right? Like, it's been confirmed by various sources that Gunther was originally supposed to have a different match at WrestleMania, and Seth was obviously supposed to have Braun Breaker. But credit to the two guys, because I think that for a thrown together match where they've only really had a few weeks to build it, they have built it quite well on the fact of it's kind of, I want to be better than you, and that's what it's all about, sort of thing. I agree with you that I think the original booking of Seth going over stands, just because if Seth beats Gunther, who basically kind of stepped in to protect Paul Heyman somewhat, you can then continue the Seth and the Vision storyline because he hasn't fallen at the first hurdle. Do you know what I mean? And also, I don't think that losing hurts Gunther because of this kind of legend killer angle that they have been doing with him over the last sort of 6 months to a year. So yeah, I'm with you. I think Seth wins this one.
Next is Stephanie Vaquer versus Liv Morgan. If they had dropped the music video after Mania, I probably would have said that this could be anybody. But I think Liv Morgan wins, which is unfortunate because they haven't really done anything with Stephanie Vaquer's title reign at all. Like, she's had very little credible threats to kind of like, or even matches, really.
I agree with that. It is a shame. It's a shame for her because she's a good wrestler, and I think that they didn't give her the opportunities to shine that they should have. But I also wonder whether part of that is because she's still... I think they sometimes worry about wrestlers who have English as their second language struggling to get over in the promo part of things. And I think it's why we've seen wrestlers like Shinsuke not do as well, because he can't do the promos. We see it all the time with wrestlers where English isn't their first language.
Yeah.
And I think that might be, unfortunately, I think Stephanie Vaquer might have fallen victim to that, because in terms of the in-ring stuff, she's one of the better female wrestlers they have. So,
yeah, and then you can have Liv do the "I'm the greatest WrestleMania champion of all time." So,
well, I mean, hopefully, if Liv wins, we eventually work towards Liv versus Raquel. I think that could be quite fun. Like, yeah, let's see what happens with it.
Yeah. All right. So the last match for night one is Cody Rhodes versus Randy Orton. The problem with this one is, I mean, obviously the Pat McAfee thing is a whole other can of worms. But
good Lord, yeah.
Like the thing with this is the fact, like, they've already stated who wins this match, and that's like unfortunate. Because you've had Pat saying, if Randy loses, you'll never see me again. And then they immediately hint to booking a match of Randy Orton and Pat McAfee versus Jelly Roll and Cody at Backlash.
Yeah.
Not to mention, Pat McAfee is part of ESPN, and ESPN has a big deal going with WWE. So you want that cross connection because of their deal. So I don't think there's a chance that Randy Orton loses this.
I kind of agree, but just for the sake of conversation, I think we need to examine it a little bit. So, on the face of how they've tried to build the thing, I kind of agree. My argument against it would be that I think the negative reaction towards the Pat McAfee involvement has gone beyond, hey, like, because you could argue that Pat McAfee was brought into the angle to get a negative reaction on purpose to make more heat for Randy Orton, right?
Well, like he was brought in because TKO thought that he was going to help sell tickets. So this is a TKO decision. This isn't a WWE decision. Like
I know.
TKO,
and that's kind of my entire thought process here, is that will they look at it, and we know it didn't really help sell tickets because even their discount flopped. We saw that, you know. If anything, they actually sold more tickets for night 2, which is the night that Pat McAfee isn't on, you know.
And the one that he said on WWE programming, that is ass. Like that is. I don't know what they were doing there.
So it's kind of like, what the impression I'm getting is Pat McAfee, for people who don't understand wrestling and maybe are here for the gaming stuff, here's a good gaming analogy for you. It's when like big Microsoft suits get involved in Xbox and decide and make decisions for the people who should be making the decisions when they don't really know what they're doing. That's what the whole Pat McAfee situation has come from. And I just wonder whether the negative reaction to it, its failure to sell more tickets, and all these kind of things.
It would be like putting Trump in Fortnite.
Yeah. Might have them kind of going, oh, okay, maybe we shouldn't do this. Because especially if there's a situation where Randy wins because of Pat doing something to help him win, I don't think that's a good look. I think they made a major mistake here, and I think that they should have, like, I'm not against Randy winning, but I think Randy winning in the current climate of how they've built this feud and what they've done around it, I think that's actually a bad thing. So while I'm with you in terms of based on the way they've built it, there's basically no way that Randy shouldn't win this match, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there's always that part of me of, will WWE change the booking as a like, we know this is wrong? Because I'm sure we've heard that there are people in WWE that were not happy about this happening, right? And I also think, to counter the Pat point of like, oh, if Randy loses, you'll never see me again, the one argument I would give against that is, because Pat is tied into ESPN, you can still have Pat somehow tied into the product without actively being on the product itself. And I think that's the one difference. What I can see happening, honestly, I think it goes one of two ways. I do think Randy is more likely to win, so that will be my prediction. But I do think there's a chance that what they do is Pat tries to do something. He tries to cheat to kind of help Randy win, and then Jelly Roll actually comes down to deal with Pat, which leads to Cody winning in the end. And then I think if you do want to do that match, you can still get to that match that way. And, you know, it's but for me, this is kind of the biggest shame of WrestleMania, because this match should have been the biggest match on WrestleMania.
Mm-hmm.
And because of how they've built it, it's not. You know, and there's a reason that this is the night 1 main event instead of the night 2 main event. And that's because the main event on night 2 has been built so much better. Even though there's been issues with the build of the night 2 main event, the overall build has been so much better. This build for Cody and Randy should have simply been exactly what Cody said the other day. There's 20 years of history between these two wrestlers. Why not just build the match on that history like you have done for every other major rivalry in the years. You know, it's so weird, and I hope that if anyone at TKO ever sees this, please don't get involved ever again. Like, just let the guys that know what they're doing do their jobs. Like,
yeah, like if you're trying to devalue WWE so you can sell it, just sell it.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. I agree.
All right. We're on to night 2.
Yes.
So we have Obafemi versus Brock Lesnar. I think the plan here is just to legitimize Femi.
I agree.
And I think Brock, who loves working with Femi, I think is willing to kind of take the loss. So I think Femi just wins.
Yeah, I agree. At this point, Brock doesn't need to win, right? Brock is an attraction all of his own. He's done everything there is to do in the business. This is, especially if the reports are true that Brock is going to be retiring around SummerSlam time, it makes sense for me to have Brock lose here, legitimize Femi as, no pun intended, but the next big thing, right? Which was Lesnar's nickname back in the day. Have him kind of be that, because then you instantly, what you do with having Femi beat Lesnar, you instantly push Femi into the main event scene. He doesn't need to win one of the main titles straight away, but he can at least be in that conversation immediately, right? And I think that will help. That will help in a lot of ways, because right now, as Triple H said in an interview the other day, even he admitted that currently they don't have a backup plan if the top stars aren't available for some reason. Even though they've got a lot of stars, they have very clearly defined top stars on the roster right now. And the people that are just underneath them are not anywhere near the same level at the moment. So I think that having Femi beat Lesnar does help push him towards that level a little bit more. And, and then I think that eventually we'll be led to Lesnar versus Gunther later in the year, and Gunther's probably going to beat Lesnar as well. So
it's going to make him tap. All right.
Yeah.
So now the most thrown together match in the entire card: Penta versus Rusev versus Javon Evans versus Dragon Lee versus JD Madonna versus Rey Mysterio. I think either Penta retains or Javon Evans wins. I don't see them giving the belt to Rusev or Dragon Lee or JD Madonna or Rey Mysterio.
I think I agree with you mostly. I think there's an outside chance they could give it to Rey. Just because Rey's got to be coming towards the end. Like, Rey has to be coming towards the end. And I also think that you're probably going to get a final rivalry between Dom and Rey at some point this year, I would imagine. And that might be a nice way of like getting Dom that belt back, potentially. I mean, we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. My gut says you have Javon Evans win here, because he's really over right now, but he's not. Going back to what I said about the previous match, right? Javon Evans is at a level right now where they tried to push him towards the main event by putting him in the Elimination Chamber and things, but he isn't quite that over yet. He's not quite that level of star yet. And I think them giving him this belt is a feel-good moment at Mania because people will pop for it. Penta doesn't really need the belt either. And I think that they've clearly shown interest in using Penta over in AAA recently. And let's remember that his brother Ray Phoenix is over in AAA at the moment as well. So they can do some interesting things over there.
My issue with a title change is that they did nothing to kind of put the people in this match in a way that felt like WrestleMania build-up.
I agree.
They were just like, oh, here's some random matches that happened on main event, and they were WrestleMania matches.
Yeah, I agree. It's very weird. I think that what they should have done is what they would typically do for this kind of match is have qualifiers on Raw and SmackDown in the last couple of weeks leading up to Mania. At least then, yes, it still would have been thrown together, but it would have felt less thrown together than the way they presented it and did it, right? So yeah, I'm with you though. I think, to be honest, this one's a 50-50 coin toss between Javon Evans and Penta, but I would say Javon Evans.
All right. We have Gingerbread Man versus Trick Williams.
Gingerbread Man. Gingerbread Man.
I honestly, I think that this is a good moment for Trick. He is,
I think that's the whole reason. I think that's the whole reason they gave Sammy the belt back. And this is my thing. Because you could have had Carmelo in this match, right? Yeah. But Carmelo shouldn't be losing at Mania right now because he had a good run. Like, he had a good run with the belt. He had some good matches with Ilya Dragunov. It would have damaged him to lose at Mania. Whereas I think them doing the build-up they did with Sammy, where Sammy just wasn't quite good enough recently and all these kind of things, and it just kind of felt right. And I agree with you because Trick is over like he's a main event star. Mm-hmm. What I can't figure out right now is he only over because of the entrance and the chant, or is he over because people actually like what he can do? Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Like, because there is a difference between being over because of an entrance, because that won't last forever. You know, like, eventually the entrance wears off on people and that isn't going to hold. So that's my one question mark around Trick Williams right now. But I agree with you. I think they should give him the belt. The only situation where I can see them not giving him the belt is if they're using this match to, in some form, turn Sammy into a heel. And we almost get like a double switch where Trick becomes a face because they turn Sammy heel to win. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so we have the Demon Finn Balor versus Dominic Mysterio. And the thing with this point right now, I would say that Finn would have to win this because that's the reason to bring the Demon back. Like, they're not going to bring the Demon back just to like lose after all this time.
I agree. And they've built up him bringing the Demon back, and the way that they're talking about bringing the Demon back also feels like they might finally be comfortable with pushing Finn towards the top again as well. Because I know they had some concerns over that in the past because of his injury record and things. But I think that he has obviously had a few years of relatively good health now in wrestler terms, and perhaps they're thinking, do you know what, he's shown that he is now able to maintain fitness, and we need more top stars. Do you know what I mean? And I think that it, to me, it makes no sense for Finn not to win, especially given that they're bringing the Demon back.
Yeah, especially with him breaking out of the Judgment Day. If he loses, it just loses the credibility of that leaving.
I completely agree.
Yeah. Next up, we have Jade Cargill versus Rhea Ripley. I think this is them course correcting, and they're going to put the belt on Rhea because Jade is great in everything she does except for wrestling.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Like she just needs more work wrestling. Yeah. And
she isn't experienced enough yet to be the top star of a division, right? Like, you can see it. Like, she has improved. Let's give her credit. She has definitely improved.
Yeah.
But she is not. And this is the thing. I don't want to sound super down on Jade because I see what they see. Like, she will, once she can improve the in-ring stuff, she will be one of the biggest female stars that they've ever had in the history of wrestling, because she's got the charisma, she's got the look, she's got all of these things. But the wrestling, she makes too many mistakes in the ring, you know?
Yeah.
And it's not, when she's in there with a veteran who can kind of help carry her and correct some of those mistakes, it's fine because they hide her flaws. But she's not going to be in there with a veteran every single time. And that's the issue right now. So I agree with you. I think that this is kind of course correcting. It's you know, and also Rhea is kind of like a slam dunk hit every single time, right? So
yeah, and
I think they give her the belt.
So I think what happens here is I think like the ref gets knocked out, and then Jade's little alliance there, they come out and start beating up Rhea Ripley, and then Io comes out and starts beating them up, but then they get one over Io, and then Bianca Belair's music plays and she comes out and then she clears house, and then in the ring you have Rhea, Bianca, and Io, who were last WrestleMania.
Yeah.
And then Jade comes in, they all do their thing to Jade or whatever, they get out, the ref comes in, and then Rhea gets the win.
Yeah, that would be really nice. I mean, the only thing with that is obviously I don't know if Bianca is ready yet, only because she had that weird thing with her finger.
Yeah. But I think that she would be ready for like a run-in to do that kind of thing. And then she would get cleared probably in the night, like say by Backlash. And then it would be Jade versus Bianca at Backlash.
Yeah, that would be really cool. I definitely wouldn't be opposed to that. Maybe Jeff should be the booker of WrestleMania.
Let's do it. Put me in charge. All right. So the last match is the full-timer versus the part-timer. We have CM Punk versus Roman Reigns. I think they are just going to put the belt on Roman, even though he is the part-timer. I'm
really split on this one. This is the one match that I'm genuinely split on, because I can see it going both ways. I think that they might put the belt on Roman because Roman's gonna, even though he's the part-timer, he's also the guy that's going to be going around doing press for Street Fighter later this year. Yeah. And having, hey, I'm the champion, like, it's a good advertising thing for them. But then there's also that part of me of, this is finally CM Punk's singles match main event at Mania. Yeah. Are they going to let him have that win? Because he probably only has one, maybe two WrestleManias left. And I think that both parties, I think WWE and CM Punk, would want to have him have that Mania win at some point, right? Because that would be like a massive mark on his career if he doesn't ever win a WrestleMania main event. Like, that would be a bit harsh, I think, given the career that he's had. So that's kind of why I'm split on this one, because I can genuinely see it going either way, because I think that if you have, I've said it the other week, but if you have Punk win, it achieves a few things, in my opinion. It allows Roman to go off without the title being taken off TV for a really long time. But it also, not only that, it legitimizes Punk to the younger generation who have always seen Roman as the top star, you know? Because for a certain generation of wrestling fan, Roman is the only top star that they know, because that's how heavily he's been pushed over the last decade. And And I think that that's kind of why this match is so split, because you've got the older portion of the crowd who really seem to want CM Punk to win, and then you've got the younger portion of the crowd that really want Roman to win, right? But that's exactly why this is, in my opinion, the biggest match of Mania as well. Like, I think this has been the most well built. We had the CM Punk pipe bomb the other week, you know? Like, they've done some really good stuff here. I think it could go either way. I'm going to go on this occasion with my heart over my head, and I'm going to say that CM Punk wins.
Yeah, that would be really, really nice. It's just, I don't know. I think WWE is just wanting to make a couple safe bets, and I think putting the belt back on Roman is one of those.
Yeah, that's fair. That's absolutely fair. But of course, we have now spoken about all the wrestling. By the time you're seeing this, you've either already watched night 1, and night 2 will be coming later, or this might be out just before night 1. It depends on if I can get things sorted in time. But let us know your predictions for at least night 2 if you haven't.
It can't be out. It can't be out before night 1, because we're talking about a game that we're pushing this podcast out.
Yes, we are. Yes, that is true, actually. So let us know how we did in our predictions, and let us know what you thought of WrestleMania. But let's get to some gaming news, I suppose. But before we do that, should we have a quick word from our friends, Jeff?
Sure. So right now, the sale for NordVPN is still going on. You can save 75% off your NordVPN. So instead of it costing $14.49 Canadian per month, you're only basically paying $3.79 per month right now with NordVPN. NordVPN is great, especially if you are wanting to watch, a certain wrestling program on Netflix. You can swap to a other country's Netflix instead of having to deal with the ESPN app, which apparently is ass. So, so right now go to nordvpn.com/analogstickgaming and save on your subscription to you could get it prescribed. There could be a case where a doctor's like, you need
NordVPN.
Yeah, it's going to help you in the bedroom. All right, so go check that out and browse the internet how you want today.
Absolutely. And now let's get to some gaming news. We may have to cut 1 or 2 of these things just because our wrestling discussion went slightly longer than I expected.
Sure, but, I'll cut the game announcement just because that you can go on to analogstickgaming.com and check out the reveal of Metro 2039, which I'm super excited for.
Definitely. So what do we have up first in terms of our main news today?
Let's take a look at this one here. So video game industry woes continue with more mass layoffs at Iron Galaxy. So Iron Galaxy Studios, the Illinois-based independent developer, has announced a round of layoffs that could affect as many as 90 people. It's the second round of layoffs in as many years, with Iron Galaxy cutting 66 jobs in 2025. The studio announced its news on LinkedIn, writing, Iron Galaxy Studios regrets to announce that we are reducing our company size. We are terribly sorry to lose them, and we are taking steps to adapt to a climate of the video game industry is currently offering. It's time for us to evolve again. Iron Galaxy's statement went on to say it is forming a new company structure as a result of the gaming industry overall seeing slowed growth coming out of the pandemic. So this is like just another round of layoffs from, again from Iron Galaxy. I mean, they had their one game kind of fail. That was that kind of like open world wrestling game, and that didn't do particularly well. So they've kind of had a string of bad luck lately. Yeah. I really hope for this studio because like they did some amazing stuff with Killer Instinct, and I would love for, like, honestly, if Microsoft were smart, make another Killer Instinct. Like, because like that is a brand that people absolutely love. But
I
again,
agree.
we're seeing some layoffs from them, which is unfortunate, and we definitely hope that all the people that are affected by those layoffs,
Yeah.
Continue to work their passion somewhere else in the industry.
Yeah, absolutely. And, as you said, it's a major shame for that studio because they've definitely had their challenges over the last decade or so. And I wish that someone would just allow them a bit of financial security so that they can actually get back to making really good things because they've proven they can do it in the past.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm hoping for the best for them and for everybody that got laid off in this round of layoffs. We are also hoping for the best for you. But Jeff, what is next on the news today?
All right. So, Bethesda's former head of publishing, Pete Hines, has said he decided to quit the company because he felt that the Elder Scrolls publisher is part of something that is not authentic and not genuine. Hines quit Bethesda in 2023 after 24 years of the company, shortly after the release of Starfield. Speaking in a frank interview with Fireside Chats, the former Bethesda veteran claimed that it was always his intention to leave the company after Starfield shipped, and suggested that he was unhappy with the direction of the company post-Microsoft acquisition. It was really hard to walk away from my team and not get to see them on a regular basis. At the same time, I also hit a point of realizing I could not spend the rest of my life doing something that wasn't for me. It was for everyone else, which is what I was doing. I was staying there because this place still needs me. I just hit a point of, yes, it needs me, and I am powerless to do what I think needs to be done to run this place properly, to protect these people, and to maintain what we worked so hard to create, which is an incredibly efficient, well-run video game developer and publisher. And when I couldn't protect it, how I saw it was getting damaged and broken apart and frankly mistreated, abused, whatever word you want to use. I said, I'm not going to sit here and watch this happen right in front of me. I think I've done everything I can do. This is not when I wanted it to end or how I wanted it to end, but that's not really up to me. And at a certain point, truthfully, my mental health was so deplorable that I just said I cannot. Hines said he was waiting until Starfield's release before quitting Bethesda, but repeated delays meant he stayed on for nearly a year longer than he planned. Every time Todd delayed Starfield, I thought, fuck, I'm here for another 8 months. And Todd was the only one who knew. So yeah, like that's kind of a big story, really. When you have someone like that, essentially seeing kind of like the direction that the company's going, and you almost have to wonder, how does Todd feel?
Yeah.
In this angle.
The one thing I'd say, and I'm not pushing back against Pete Hines here. This is his own experience and what he saw from his opinion, right?
Yeah.
What I would disagree with is that I don't think they built an incredibly efficient studio over the years. I think that quite honestly, that isn't true. I wonder, when I first saw this story, my initial thought process was, does the closure of Arcane Austin have something to do with this? Because like...
Well, I think you cut.
They essentially closed down Tango Gameworks before eventually then selling them off to someone else instead.
Yeah.
They closed down Arcane Austin because after Redfall, which was a game that studio didn't even want to make, but let's remember that was Bethesda's mistake, and yet they're an incredibly efficient studio and are great at apparently. So I'm not pushing back against Pete Hines' own experience, but I do push back against him saying that Microsoft have somehow made the studio and made that publisher less how can I put it, less efficient, because I think they were very inefficient anyway. I can completely understand and relate to, look, you've just been taken over by new owners and they are going to want a different direction than maybe what you agree with. And I can understand why that would be frustrating for him. And I also wonder whether, if we look at Pete Hines, I wonder whether his job role kind of fell into a position where they didn't really need him because they already had people at Microsoft who could do his job on behalf of the Bethesda studios. Do you know what I mean? I love Pete Hines. I'm actually a really big fan of Pete Hines over the years, and I miss him being a part of the industry. And, you know, what I think is interesting here from the other side of things is whether you agree with everything that Pete Hines said about Bethesda being really efficient and all these kind of things, either way, there's still a reason that Pete Hines felt like he had to leave, right? There's still something that happened or something that he was seeing that made him feel, oh, I have to leave, you know? And it wasn't even just leaving, he effectively retired. So what did he see that was so bad that made him retire from the industry?
Maybe Xbox wanted to ship the next Elder Scrolls without glitches, and he was like, I can't not stand for this.
Like, and again, that's kind of my thing is, let's not rule out, and this is just me being devil's advocate, let's not rule out the possibility as well that some of these comments might be from the mindset of a disgruntled former employee, you know? Because when you're a former employee, you're always going to take some shots at your former employer. You're always going to say that there are certain things that you don't think they did well. And again, I'm not against that. I actually really appreciate Pete Hines coming out and sharing his experience and giving his outlook on things, because I do think it's a warning sign for, you know, what I'd love to know from other people, what their opinion is on Bethesda before Microsoft and Bethesda since Microsoft, you know? Because from a game player perspective, okay, Starfield didn't pan out the way we'd hoped, but I would argue that would have been the case whether Microsoft were involved or not. I think they had very little impact. Given when they took over Bethesda, I think they had a minimal impact on what Starfield as a game was. However, what I can say is that since Microsoft have owned Bethesda, I think it's been very clear that the majority of their games have released in a more polished state than they ever did when Bethesda was on their own.
See, that's why I think Pete Hines is like, no, we have to launch with game-breaking glitches. That's the Bethesda way.
So again, and I'm not trying to sound too negative because I get it. This is Pete Hines' experience, but I'd love to get, as you said, I'd love to know, what does Todd Howard think? What do other people at the studio think? Because right now, at least in terms of the senior positions, as far as I'm aware, he's the only one that's left. So was he the only one that disagreed with it? Like, because at least for the moment, from everything we've heard from people, they're actually quite happy with how Microsoft supports Bethesda. You know, so it's, yeah, I'd really love to hear some more opinions on it, and I'm sure we will in the years to come. I wish that Pete Hines was still in the industry. And again, to me, I don't want to be having conspiracy theories and things, but to me, some of what he said here in this interview comes across as disgruntled former employee who maybe didn't like the fact that they didn't really need him because they had other people to do his job.
Yeah.
You know?
All right. Sticking in Xbox news, Microsoft's new head of Xbox, Asha Sharma, has told employees that Game Pass has become too expensive and suggested the subscription service pricing is about to change. In an internal memo sent to gaming employees, first published by The Verge, Sharma said that the service needs a better value equation 6 months after Microsoft hiked its top Game Pass tier by almost 50%. Game Pass is central to gaming value on Xbox. It's also clear that the current model isn't the final one. Short-term, Game Pass has become too expensive for players, so we need a better value equation. Long-term, we will evolve Game Pass into a more flexible system, which will take time to test and learn around. I absolutely agree with this. Like, here's the thing. I always find value in Game Pass regardless. You literally just have to play like 1 to 2 games pretty much every month out of the service to get that value out of it. But I definitely do understand that it is a hurdle right now because like I'm paying like $42 or something per month on Game Pass.
So I want to talk quite a bit about this. So please forgive me if this section of the episode goes quite long, but I think we have a lot to say as long-time users of Game Pass. I think both myself and Jeff will have a lot to say on this. I completely agree with everything she said in this internal memo. I think that while I'm of the opinion that, yes, Game Pass is expensive, but there's a difference between being expensive and no longer offering value, I would still say that there's a significant group of people that Game Pass offers good value to. I think the problem is the group of people that it offers good value to is now smaller than the group of people that it's too expensive for, you know? And that's the problem, is like for people like myself and Jeff who play a lot of games all the time across a variety of genres, you know, the equivalent of $30 a month, $30 a month is not actually much, right? Like we're gonna speak about a game a bit later, Replaced, that literally launched into Game Pass.
And I mean, like I'm looking at Game Pass right now, like Hades 2 dropped as well too. You've got NHL 26 that dropped, and then Call of Duty Modern Warfare, the remake, that just launched on Game Pass as well. Like you play all of those this month, and you already redeemed 2 to 3 months worth of Game Pass.
Precisely. So for me, I get it. I personally don't have the same experience just because, as someone who plays so many games across so many different genres, I always look at it like this. If I was paying yearly for Game Pass, right?
I wish you could.
You look at it like this. So in the UK, it costs around £20 a month now. Okay, so you're talking about roughly £240 a year, but a brand new AAA game costs me £70 a year.
Yeah.
So you look at this year alone. I know I'm going to play Forza Horizon. That would be £70 plus, because I'd actually buy, if I needed to, I would buy the premium edition of that game because I want to play it early, right? So that would actually be more than that, but for simple maths, 70. Then you got Fable, if that actually comes this year, 70. So that's 140 already from 2 games, okay? So the way that I look at it is, at least in the UK, if you play 4 AAA games a year on the service that you would have bought anyway if they weren't on the service, then it's worth your money. And if you're actually adding more value to that through smaller games you played, indie games, all these kind of things, like, let's remember that the game of the year in 2025 launched day one into Game Pass, right? And was still one of the best-selling games of the year due to its quality as a video game.
Yeah.
So it's what I think is interesting here, though, to bring it back to the Asha Sharma thing, I do think they need to reevaluate the value proposition and figure out a way of getting the price lower. I know there has been some rumors and discussion about them considering maybe not putting new Call of Duty games onto the service, because apparently that's a big part of the reason that the price went up. I actually don't think they can do that, because if your whole point is to upgrade the value proposition, you can't do that by taking something away just to make it cheaper. That doesn't work. So, in my opinion, what they should do, and it comes into contact with one of the other things we've heard they've been kind of considering recently, which is a Xbox first party only tier of Game Pass. I think they should restructure the entire service. You switch to a situation where online play on Xbox is free. So you no longer charge for Xbox Live, okay? And then you have 2 tiers of Game Pass. You have standard, which is first-party only Xbox games across the console and the PC, and you charge, I don't know, let's say $12, $13 a month for that, right? Something like the original price you were charging a few years ago. And then what you do is Ultimate, you bring back down from 30 to 20. So you have a standard tier, which is if you only want Xbox first party games, you can get this for, $12 a month or $15 a month. And then if you want the third party stuff as well, from like the games like Clair Obscur, Replaced, all those kind of things, we've brought it down to 20. Because then I think what you're doing is, for the people that only really want Game Pass for the exclusives, you're offering them a really high value proposition, but it's also close enough to the cost of the next tier that a lot of those people will go, well, if I'm paying like $12 to $15 for the first party only tier, why don't I pay an extra $5 and get these hundreds of third-party titles as well?
See,
that's my personal opinion.
What I would do for Game Pass is, I would still have the basic one include live. I think that's a massive amount of revenue that you would miss out if you gave online for free. Still, I could see them doing it. What I would do basically is your first tier of Game Pass has everything, but all of your first party stuff gets released 90 days after launch. And then
interesting. Okay.
And then your regular Game Pass Ultimate, which is $20 or whatever, that has everything, including first party, but your first party is day one.
Yeah, so you've got kind of an option of like, if you want the day one games, you get Ultimate.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Mainly just because the first party stuff is going to be the big draw. And I think you put that as the more enticing thing in the more expensive pack.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. Again, my one argument against that is there are people that only want Game Pass for those things. And right now, I don't think you have a tier of Game Pass that allows people who only want it for those things to go and get it. The one concern,
the problem with that though is like you're kind of feeding that audience that is like, oh, Xbox doesn't have a lot of games, and then they only play like the first party stuff. They don't play the third party stuff. True. You're kind of feeding that argument, and
true.
For me, it's a lot of the best stuff is the third party stuff. So I think that if you are wanting the people that just want the first party, they can just play the first party, but then they have access to everything else.
That's true. Very good point. But yeah, I think that, so basically what we're essentially saying, and we're both agreeing on, is they need to go back to 2 tiers of Game Pass only. Like, there shouldn't be more than...
Just go back to what it was. Put the price back to what it was before the hike, and you're done.
Yeah. You cannot take Call of Duty away. You cannot do that. That would be disastrous. I've also heard some report, like, people are still undecided on whether, we have had the word that they are seriously considering the exclusive situation again. So we'll see about that. And we know that all of a sudden, Microsoft have reduced the profit margin that Xbox must make to allow them the freedom to go back to exclusives if they want to. That basically means the people at the top of Microsoft are realizing they made a mistake before, but they want to pin it on the people that are no longer there anymore. So they're giving the people that have now taken over more freedom to do the thing that they should have allowed the other people to do. Whether they go back to exclusives or not is a really interesting conversation for me, because I think that if you're trying to do what Asha Sharma originally said when she came in, which is refocus on the console and the kind of foundational player base of Xbox and what made Xbox in the first place, you have to go back to a focus on the console, and part of that is basically making as much as possible exclusive, right? But I do know, and I wonder how you feel on this, Jeff. I know that there are a lot of people who say the problem is that with Game Pass, if they want Game Pass to be a success, they almost have to not have exclusives. And they kind of can't have both. Like, if Game Pass is their focus, they can't also focus on making the console the only place to play the things. So I know there are some people that feel that way. I'm not sure that I completely agree on it, but I do think that I see the argument that is it sustainable given the price of making games these days? Is it sustainable to make all your first party stuff exclusive, but then also have it in this really affordable subscription service where you're potentially not going to get as much money out of people unless they stay subscribed?
There's a lot of people that don't like Game Pass. They want to buy their games. So you're still going to have money coming from those. You're still putting stuff on PC. People want to play on Steam, so they're not getting the Game Pass money as well too. So you're still going to be selling like a good portion of it. The thing with how they're doing the first party stuff, and like they're bringing like Gears and Halo and Forza and stuff to PlayStation, it's kind of hard to kind of switch that off. But I mean, like, I think that if you make the console something that is a very attractive piece of hardware, especially like if it is reported to be like way more powerful than the PlayStation, whatever. And again, like if you do that thing where you're putting online as free and stuff, and you're making these things, you can still have Game Pass as being an attractive piece of software.
You have selling points for the hardware without having, I agree.
And like it just makes it a lot easier because people go like, oh, okay, well I can get all this stuff, and they're paying for the subscriptions.
I kind of agree with that. I will say that as a long time fan of Xbox, there is part of me that wants them to go back to exclusives, just because I would have loved to have seen what would have happened if they would have given Xbox the time to actually let this pipeline that they finally built play out, And like, can you imagine this year, if everything this year was exclusive, can you imagine how big this year would have been for Xbox? It would have been huge.
See, like for me, it's like I'm not even really too concerned about the stuff being exclusive. It's the fact that everything that's going to be selling on like PlayStation, for example, is just extra money, because like, and and to me, like if you were buying Forza 6 on PlayStation 5 or whatever, you're supporting Xbox.
Yeah, you are. Yeah.
So
I
like
agree. I agree.
I think that if they are going to do the stuff where it's not exclusive, is just have a timed window where it's just not available on PlayStation.
And that's what I've seen from a lot of people, and this is what I've said for a long time, is I think that because people argue that they can't have the problem with Xbox right now is that if I've heard some people say it feels like they want to go fully multi-platform, but they're kind of tiptoeing around it because they don't want to upset people. And I do agree with what people are saying of, I think the fatal mistake that Xbox are making right now is they're stuck between two different directions and they need to choose one direction, be really clear about it, and then stick to it. That's my opinion. I think that if you, for example, if you come out and you say to people, do you know what? Yeah, every single game going forward is going to release on PlayStation, but every single game is going to have a 1-year exclusivity window. People will accept that more than what you're doing right now. Because the problem right now is people don't understand why they should get in on your platform because your messaging is too confusing. Because 1 minute you'll have a game that's day one on PlayStation. Next minute you'll have a game that isn't coming to PlayStation for 6 months. And it's all kind of all over the place.
You're also like Xbox has kind of set themselves up in where they're making more money that way because you're not making that much money on hardware at all.
I agree.
You're making the majority of it on software. So putting the game out on PlayStation right away is just guaranteed extra money that's outside of the Gamepass bubble.
I agree, and I think that's the thing, right? Is they're clearly reevaluating everything right now, which I think is the right thing to do. And I like some of what they're saying, but I think that whatever direction they decide to take ultimately will only work if they take that direction, message it really clearly, and then stick to exactly what they've said. And you can't, like, the reason, for example, that PC, like, stuff for PlayStation on PC hasn't done as well because they don't message it clearly, right? But first-party stuff on the PlayStation console always does well because people know and it's accepted that this is going to be, at least in most cases, it's accepted that outside of live service games, every single game on PlayStation is going to be exclusive to PlayStation for some period of time at the very minimum, right? And that's kind of the issue that Xbox have right now, is people don't know. So because they don't know, it creates a confusion. And I think that if you come out during Summer Games Fest and you say, look, this is what we've decided, or this is what we've decided, as long as you're really clear about what it is and what you're doing, and you then stick to it, I actually think it'll be a really positive thing either way. Like, even if they come out and say, do you know what? We were wrong. They would get backlash for going back to full exclusives from people. But they would also get a lot of respect from people if they come out and say, do you know what? We were wrong. We tried the multi-platform approach and we realized that it hurts our platform and it hurts our identity. And so we are refocusing on our core audience. And in doing that, every game going forward is now going to be exclusive with the exception of Call of Duty, right? And if they say that, it's really clear to people, and then they then have to stick to it. If they come out and they say, do you know what? We do want to be a multi-platform publisher, but we understand there's a need to support our audience and give them a reason to buy our platform. Therefore, we are doing a minimum 1 year exclusivity window on every single game, again, outside Call of Duty, that will also be accepted. And that will also be a selling point for people, because the people who can't afford to buy a PlayStation and an Xbox will be willing to wait a year if they already have a PlayStation. But the people who can afford it will buy an Xbox as well, just so they can play those games a year earlier, you know? And it's, so I think they have multiple approaches they can take right now. They just need to be really clear about messaging it. And I'm in this place where I don't want to hear about them considering things. As in, it's nice to hear, but as consumers, I think we need answers, right? And I understand that Asha Sharma has only just taken over in the last couple of months, and you can't make decisions that are that big and that massive that quickly. I will say one thing you said earlier that I don't necessarily agree on is you said how it's hard to kind of turn off the multi-platform approach because they've already done it now. I'm not disagreeing that it's hard, but I also don't think it's an impossible thing to do, especially for a company the size of Microsoft, who can quite happily and easily eat the initial loss and negativity that would give them from a certain section of the audience. I think that it's kind of like, I'll look at it like this, right? And Tim Gettys said this on Kinda Funny. Concord came out and shut down 2 weeks later because it wasn't worth maintaining in Sony's eyes, and they lost hundreds of millions from shutting down that one game. The multi-platform approach not doing the multi-platform approach would potentially lose Xbox hundreds of millions going forward, at least in the short term. But the argument and the calculation they will be making is, although this might lose us hundreds of millions in the next 12 months, 18 months, in the next 24, 36 months, will it actually mean that we're making hundreds of millions more? Because when we go into the next generation, if we head into the next generation with a renewed outlook on exclusives, people will be more willing to buy our new hardware. Whereas right now, people are in the mindset of, if you're already on Xbox, you're probably going to buy the new hardware anyway, right? But if you're not, a lot of people are like, well, what's my reason to ever buy an Xbox? Because I can get this game here. And I can get this game here. And I think that the device they're creating seems to be for people who want a PC but can't afford a PC. And the way that you capture those people is you need to give them a reason to buy your device, because if they can just buy a PlayStation and play your games instead, they're probably going to do that, you know? Like, unless your device is somehow cheaper than the next PlayStation, which I actually doubt that that's going to be the case, unless their device is cheaper, I think they will really struggle going into the next generation specifically if they don't have some form of clear exclusivity, whether that be a window or full exclusivity for all titles. And I think they need to make it whatever they decide, they need to make it an all title outside of Call of Duty thing. Because Call of Duty people will let go, because we know that legally they have to maintain Call of Duty as a multi-platform game. But other than that, why? You know, like, so I think that that's the thing. They need to have a really clear message around exclusivity in particular, I think. And they need to get that message out as quickly as possible, especially with what they have coming this year, because currently it's expected, obviously, that they're bringing Gears to PlayStation, bringing Halo to PlayStation, bringing all these things to PlayStation, right? And it's like, but those games also aren't out yet, so they could decide not to. And have
they can't take that back. That would be like lawsuits and shit.
But we've seen games do that before, though, where they were coming out on Xbox, and they all of a sudden weren't coming out on Xbox anymore. You know,
it's not just like not through like a first party publishing, because like you can pre-order Halo, I think, on PlayStation right now.
I'm not sure. So yeah, for the games that you can pre-order, I agree. If there's a pre-order already available for the game,
I just think it would be bad messaging. Especially for a publisher like that? Yeah,
that's interesting. Do you not think that if they did that though, people would go, "Oh, okay, they're back to actually focusing on themselves"?
No.
Wow.
I think a very low vocal minority will, the people that are still thinking the console wars
are a thing. Yeah.
But I mean, you have the average people going like, wait, hold on, like they're not bringing Gears out on PlayStation anymore? Oh, well, that sucks.
Yeah, it's kind of like if they've said it, they need to stick to it, right?
Yeah, and it's like, again, like these games coming out on PlayStation is just guaranteed revenue.
Yeah. It is also guaranteed extra cost. Let's remember that.
Yeah,
so,
I don't think it's like that much of a cost, really.
No,
in terms of,
but
the grand scheme of things. But I mean,
they definitely make a profit in the sense of, if you look at the extra cost that it cost them to take these things to PlayStation, at least in most cases of the games they've brought over there so far, they've definitely made a profit on those ports. Not on every game though, and I think that they clearly, through this whole discussion, one thing is really clear. They have a lot to consider, and they have a lot to message really clearly and correctly if they're going to make massive sweeping changes like that. The question is, are they willing to take the initial bad press for the potentially long-term positive effect of some of these changes that they could make? You know, it's like, so it's going to be interesting to see. I do think, going back to the Game Pass thing, ultimately lowering the price of Game Pass without taking anything away is what you need to achieve. And if you achieve that by taking one of the tiers away and restructuring things slightly, that's fine. But that will be a major win, and that is something they can adjust fairly quickly, right? Like, I wouldn't be surprised to see them come out at Summer Games Fest and say, do you know what? As of today, we are lowering the price of Game Pass.
Yeah.
Because that's an easy win, you know? So we'll see. We'll see what happens. I'm keenly keeping an eye on Xbox, but I'm not right now. I just want clarity on what they're actually going to do. That's kind of where I am, because I'm happy for them to take either direction. And I actually think that either direction they take as a platform, whether that be a bigger focus on actually being a multi-platform publisher, or going back to the original roots of what Xbox is, which is a platform that you're focused on, I think I'm happy for either of those, but they need to message them really clearly. They can't have this weird middle ground anymore. That's my opinion on it. But we obviously have more things to speak about. So where do we want to go next?
The last thing today, just to be kind of a quick one here, just so we can get back onto talk about games, just because we're running a little long here. Sony has announced plans to produce an R-rated animated movie based off From Software's cult classic PS4 game Bloodborne. Sony Pictures and PlayStation Productions are developing the feature film, which will be produced by content creator Sean McLaughlin, also known as Jacksepticeye, along with lyrical animation. So no plot deals So no plot details or director have been announced, though Sony has said that the project marked a continuation of its push to use game IP in the film space. So this has been something that has been just really a major talking point, because again, people want another game, obviously, but the fact that they're doing this is still a good thing, because it shows that Sony is still interested in the IP.
Yeah.
And you have somebody who's like co-producing it that is a major fan of Bloodborne.
Yeah, like I think Jacksepticeye the other day said, he put out a tweet of like, you know, that he wants to get it right for the fans, because he knows there are bigger fans than him of the game. But what he did say is that it is probably his favorite game of all time. And if somebody says that about a game, that means they really, really care, right? That means they seriously care about doing the best they can, and they're among the best of the best fans who understand what the fans care about most from this IP. Because let's be honest, this is one thing with adaptations, right? Is no matter how kind of faithful you're trying to be in all these different things, there are certain things that you have to cut out when you're adapting stuff. Because you can't fit 100-hour video game into like a 2-hour, 3-hour at most animated movie, you know? Like, so I'm really intrigued by this. I'll definitely be keeping an eye on it. I think the fact that it's R-rated is a good sign, because that means they are not kind of shying away from what the IP is.
Yeah,
and
for me, it's gonna depend on what the animation looks like for me, because I'm really picky when it comes to that stuff. And I don't even know if it's been reported if it's 2D or 3D.
I have no idea. Yeah, I haven't actually seen. That's a good point. That is a good point. But yeah, I'll keep an eye. We'll be keeping an eye on it, and you know, we will keep you updated as and when more updates for the Bloodborne animated movie come along. But for now, Jeff, I think that we should go to some games, and I'm going to bring up some gameplay here so that you can start. So give me a moment, because this. Why don't you tell people what this video game is, Jeff?
So this is The Occultist. This is kind of like in the vein of something like the Call of Cthulhu games and stuff, where basically it's like a supernatural environment. You basically have abilities that kind of help you navigate it. And you're basically kind of solving like a mystery, essentially, although it's not really much being solved here. You're kind of being fed it. I will say that I was really disappointed in this game. Like, it's got some pretty decent like level design. It's using Unreal Engine 5, so it looks really cool. I like using the medallion and basic powers to kind of do stuff. So like the medallion allows you to see things that aren't there, whether it's blood trails or items or whatever. You can manifest a white raven that's been helping you to go and collect items, which we just saw. The problem that I have with this that really affected my time with it, and far more than I assumed that it was going to, is the fact that the occultist himself is voiced by Doug Hockle of Witcher.
Yes.
And it does not fit the tone of the character. It does not fit the tone of the game. He makes these little one-liners that just don't land. And the fact also that he sounds like twice as old as his father also doesn't help as well. But it's one of those things where it's like, I really wanted to like this game because it's got a lot visually going for it. The aesthetic's really nice. I like the premise of it, like going to an island, and like a cult has pretty much taken over this island to the point where all the people are gone. You find out about this ritual, and it's got some nice ideas of what it does. But it doesn't really give a lot for you to do in its gameplay. Like it feels generally more like a walking simulator than a detective story, essentially. I really, really wanted to like this because I think all the pieces were there for it to be very cool. But like Doug Cockle just really was so miscast for this because he is just doing Geralt's voice. This isn't just Doug Cockle doing something else and it just not working. He's literally just doing Geralt's voice.
Yeah.
And it doesn't fit. It absolutely doesn't fit, and it just kind of ruins the vibe with it. I will say, like, most of the puzzles are not terribly great. Like, they just give you the solution right next to the puzzle. Like
Wow.
they
Okay.
don't really give you a chance to kind of tinker around. Like there's one where you have to adjust the values of a pipes, and it just shows you the values right next to it,
Oh
and
wow. Okay.
you just have to match those, and then it does it. Like it's not one where like, oh, something's missing and you have to go and find it, or you need multiple pieces of this thing to kind of solve the puzzle and whatnot.
Yeah.
It doesn't do that at all. It There's like a couple boss encounters that you'll take on that are kind of like of a fighting nature, but you basically just have to move out of the way. But there's not really a dodge, so
Okay.
it doesn't feel as engaging to take part in the game, in those fights. It's I don't know, like it's not a terribly long game. It's about 10 hours, but if you following a walkthrough, you can get through it in probably around 4.5, maybe 5. And like it is very puzzle heavy. There's also one area where like you beat a character and then they get possessed and then they follow you with a shovel, and they are very, very fast. They will really track you down. It doesn't feel as, I think, engaging as the rest of the game. Like it doesn't do a great job providing scares or thrills or anything like that. Like you'll never feel terrified in this game. You never feel like, oh, what's around the corner, because you already know it. You already know what's going to be around the corner. Like it doesn't feel like these little exploding babies and stuff where if you just have them stop at your feet and then run away, they just explode. So there's no threat there. I like the drawing puzzles because they make the drawing tool actually really nice to use. It's not like you're trying to be super delicate with the analog stick. It basically gives you like an area that you can draw around in without the cursor moving all over the place. So that's really good.
That's good.
But yeah, like it's one of those games where it just doesn't succeed on the things that it's trying to do.
Yes.
But like if you can get this game for like $15-20 on sale or something, and it is the kind of game where like, hey, I like those games, like the Sherlock Holmes games and the Call of Cthulhu games. Just don't expect the depth of those games, because like some of the levels, like the circus, is just you just feel like you're running all over the place, and it doesn't have a rhyme or reason to its progression. And again, the puzzles are not. You'll never be stuck on them at all. Period.
Yeah, that's fair.
And
well, go on.
Yeah, I kind of wish that you could mix some of those things. Like maybe when you're fighting a boss, you have to use the thing to materialize something, and then have the boss hit that, and then do something. Like I kind of wish you could combine the powers to be something.
almost like the game needs a bit more depth. It sounds like
and it just needs a new voice actor as the protagonist, because Doug Cockle ain't it.
Fair. I never thought I'd hear someone say that, but it makes sense to me based on what you said.
He's great as Witcher. I love him as Witcher. But taking that same voice and putting it in this game, it doesn't work. Not with the one-liners he's making.
We have another game to speak about here as well, which is Mouse PI, of course.
Yeah.
So, do you want to start?
Yeah, so I've been playing this for the last little bit. I think I'm about I don't know, about 3 or 4 hours in, and I'm playing on Switch 2. It runs really good on Switch 2. There's only been one slowdown during one of the boss encounters, but it's fun. Like everyone looks at it like, oh, it's Cuphead. No, it's not even remotely Cuphead, other than the animation era that it's kind of pulling from. But the gameplay, like this, is basically just like Steamboat Willie Doom.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like that is what this is. This is Doom. Like you're even collecting in the bottom corner. You see you have armor, and then you also have health. It's you have your pistols, your shotguns, you have a gun that allows you to like melt them like with turpentine, kind of like Roger Rabbit style. And it feels like that. Like it feels like this era of like that kind of cartoon era, and it really, really works well. I think Troy Baker is fine in the role. I think there's a couple of times where the conversations go on along and he starts to lose a little bit of that accent in some of the dialogue, but it's all centered around like cheese and whatnot. Like cheese is like the currency and the drugs and the food and everything. Like cheese.
I mean, that kind of makes sense when it's a game about a mouse, right?
Yeah. And then you can upgrade the weapons when you find blueprints and whatnot. I like picking the lock with your tail because it kind of goes through the up and down things, and there's timed ones as well. There's collectibles to find as well too. I think there's about 20 levels or so. I like driving around the city in the car. It's like this big pulled back map, and you're in your little jalopy, and it's kind of like dancing as it drives and whatnot, and that stuff's fun. Yeah, you kick the enemies and stun them, and then you shoot them. I just fought a alligator in the sewer with a chain gun, and some of the fights I think go on a little too long. I think some of the bosses have a little bit too much health. But I do like the vibe that the game's going for. I think the black and white nature of the detective noir story, I think, kind of fits. I think it also helps hide some of the imperfections that the game clearly has if you were to make this colorized. But it does a good job. I do wish the detective aspects of the game were a bit more involved, because literally the detective aspects is just putting pictures on a wall, and then when you do that, it automatically tells you where you need to go next. You're not using detective skills to essentially figure out the game. But yeah, I've really enjoyed it so far.
Good. Have you played it? I have, yeah. So I haven't played the whole game yet, but we were lucky enough to get it over at the Outer Haven. Myself, Scott, and Keith, who've both been on the show, have also played it. Keith did our review for it over there, and what we sort of felt was it's really good at what it's going for, like what it's actually aiming for with the art style, the animation style. It nails that stuff. I do think certain aspects of the game are a bit more simplistic than I had hoped for. Just like the shooting feels quite similar, no matter what you're really doing, no matter what you're using. But overall, what I would say is Jeff nailed it in his description of this, which is, it is basically Doom. Like, this is basically a Doom game, but with a different art style, different protagonist. I really like it. I like it. I think, as you said, Troy Baker is fine, but there are definitely elements of the dialogue where he loses the accent, and it's very clearly Troy Baker. Like, yeah. So this isn't his. He's not matching his Indiana Jones performance here, but it's fine. Like, he does a decent job. I think that I agree with you on the fact that some of the fights definitely go on too long, like very clearly too long.
And that alligator fight in the sewer was fucking long.
Yeah. And then even, some of the dialogue as well. I think some of the dialogue, it's kind of like, okay, just get me out of this now. I want to get back to the game part of it, But yeah, I like the game. I wouldn't say that I love the game, but I still recommend playing it if this is your kind of game, I would say. Yeah. Let's move on to the next one, which I will bring up here. which is, when it comes up, this one, of course, Replaced, which we have both played. I played it first, and then Jeff got it slightly after me. We both haven't quite finished it yet, but you can look forward to reviews from both of us soon. Jeff's doing it for us at Analog Stick Gaming.
Yeah.
I am reviewing it over at the Outer Haven. And what I want to say is, from the very first moment that I played Replaced, something stood out to me immediately as, oh my god, this is like amazing. And you can see it right here. The art and animation style of this game, I genuinely love. I think it's expertly crafted. It feels really unique in that aspect. I actually really like the main story and the setting of the game and things you're doing. But I also think that there are aspects of the game that are clearly not as good as the rest of the game. And I think you probably agree with that, Jeff. So
Yeah.
do you want to talk on those a little bit more?
I was thinking about it when I was working on the review, because I'm writing the review right now, even though I'm not done the game, because then I can kind of find I can find time to work on the review pretty frequently. So I kind of try and get a little bit ahead of myself, and I think I kind of nail it, at least to my thought process behind it. Is I think there's a lot that this game survives on 3 pillars, or exists on 3 pillars. You have your combat, you have your platforming, and you have your stealth. And I think the combat, for the most part, is its most successful pillar, because it is very fun to do, even if it does not evolve whatsoever past the first couple hours.
Yeah.
It stays the exact same, but it's a very good same.
Yes.
The stealth, I think, is the only aspect of this game that I can legitimately say I do not like at all, because I don't feel the game is built for stealth. I mean, you have a dodge roll during combat, but not during stealth to go from cover to cover.
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense.
It's so weird. It's so weird.
If you're spotted by an enemy and immediately get behind something to take the bullet, you still die. The bullet will go through the cover. It does not matter. If you were spotted once, it doesn't matter where you go, you're done.
Yeah.
Now, the platforming, I think, and I think this is where I've kind of figured it out, of where my main issue is. When you are given your own pacing for the platforming, and you're not rushed, I think it's fine. I think it is very serviceable. I think it doesn't do anything that we haven't seen before a billion times. I think it's fine. When you are forced in a position where you have to speed through something where you're going to get instantly killed if you fail, when you don't have the luxury of your own pacing for the platforming, it absolutely sucks.
Yeah.
Because there are times where you'll go to click from something and the character like shoves over but doesn't fully commit to the jump. And if you haven't already made that jump, you're dead. You're absolutely dead. There's a part where you're going on this crane and you have to hop these boxes. And the boxes, if you're here and you jump it, you're dead. You have to jump it way back here to clear the box. Even if you look at the footage and you see your feet going over it, you'll trip. If you trip, you're dead. Yeah.
So I had a really similar thing, actually really early in the game. The very first time I played it, there's a bit very early in the game where you're outrunning this helicopter in the wood, in like a wooded area, basically.
Yeah.
And you have to jump over these fallen trees, these logs, right? And there's one where I clearly jumped over it, and yet my guy tripped and fell, so I got killed because I couldn't get up in time.
Yeah.
It's like, so I agree with you that what I would say is when you're given your own time to do the platforming, I actually kind of like it. And the reason I like it is because
it's serviceable.
It's very deliberate, but it also sticks with the animation style of the game. and it doesn't kind of go, oh, because it's platforming, we're automatically going to make all the animations faster and things. But that's the exact reason that in the situations where you have to be fast, this is the weakest part of the game.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it really is, because you have to be so precise in those fast sections, and you miss one thing, or you miss, like Jeff said earlier before we even started recording, if you're 1 pixel out of timing, you are going to fail and die in these situations. And that is really, really, really frustrating. Outside of that, though, I really like the game. I like the combat. We're seeing a bit of it here, and I just like how, you know, you can kind of dodge away, you can parry.
Yeah, I do wish the pickaxe was a little quicker, because like when you're trying to like break the heavy armor off those guys, if you don't have the exact perfect lineup for doing it, you're going to get hit and shot by something. The enemy is going to do some type of attack during the time because he goes like cling, like it's that speed, and it's so fucking slow. But again, pulling off little attacks like that where you're doing the execution kills. I do wish there was rolling over enemies.
I do as well.
I wish there was that. There's a presentation issue I'll touch upon later that to me kind of should have been something. But I think the presentation for combat and stuff like that, I think it's good. The problem is how you solve this fight right now is how the one you'll solve the one before it. And the one after. They're
all that. Kind of the same, right? Like
they're the exact same routines. They mix in 3 regulars, a heavy, and then a shooting guy. Like it's the same fight every single time. You're never fighting like 1 or 2 enemies at a time. It's always about 5 or 6 on screen. They do the same rotations.
Yeah, you know? Yeah, I agree with that. What I will say is what saves it, in my opinion, is that it always feels good, at least to me. Like, I always enjoy the combat.
It's a strong pillar.
Yeah, but again, I think the strongest part of this game, and it's not to diminish the other parts that I actually think, let's be very clear, most of this game is fine to great, in my opinion. Like, that's kind of how most of the elements of this game range.
Yeah, find a spot in the hub town back about an hour or so.
I will try to do so. Give me a second.
I'd say go back about 2 hours or so. Because like you get you go to this hub town, and basically what it does is it allows you to interact with characters that are outside of like the city walls. Should be able to find something there.
I'm looking earlier because
I would say about 45 to 50 minutes in, you'd probably, because that's a pretty right there. Yeah, right there. So you get these little like mini games and stuff like that that exist in the arcade. I didn't like any of these mini games really at all. You can probably skip ahead maybe about 5 minutes. But basically, like, you have to do this particular mini game in order to get a lens, and I never had the quest that actually paid that off. That guy went away from me. I never got to do anything with the lens. But like the hub stuff for me. So there's the guy there. Okay, so he went that way. So okay, I missed this entirely. So you go to this hub place, and what it does is it kind of works as a way to like build the lore of what's happened outside the city, and kind of humanize the AI that's kind of taken over your body, because that's the very beginning of the game. You get fused with this AI. And I will say, like, the hub stuff in regards to how it affects the character building for you is great. I think
Yeah.
like the side quests and the stuff that you do are not really that fun at all. I think it's basically these little fetch quests that I think kind of destroy the pacing of it, and I don't think really benefit the game at all.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair. That's absolutely fair. I mean, I mean, I keep looking over here because I've got the game obviously playing on my big monitor here.
Yeah.
And it just is so beautiful.
Oh, it's gorgeous.
I genuinely
it's absolutely gorgeous. But again, like it just doesn't play as consistently as the visuals look.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd agree with that. I still think overall my feeling on this game, and I don't know where I'm going to score it yet, but overall I would say it's still a solid package that I have enjoyed and I do recommend to people. But there are definite things in this game that are not as good as the rest of the game, and that's the problem.
And like for me, it's like the story is really interesting because of like the balance between like Reach and Warren in regards to like, you know, like Reach is using Warren's body essentially, and he's kind of learning humanity because he's never really had a chance to kind of like be part of that.
Yes.
And like that stuff is really cool. I think the story kind of like has like some pretty strong moments about midway through, and then the part when you get where we started the video at, the story starts to like, I think, not be as impressive. That aspect of it.
I'd agree.
But the story is also very dialogue heavy. Like very,
yes.
very dialogue heavy. There's so much dialogue in this game that I think it needed voice acting to kind of elevate the personality that this game's doing.
Yeah, I'd agree. Because I do want to say it's actually a well-written game.
Yeah.
There's just so much to read that even from an accessibility point of view, I did think to myself, for some people, because of how much there is to read, this game is going to be unplayable for some people. And I really think that, as you said, with so much of the rest of the presentation of this game being really good, not having voice acting is a missed opportunity because it would take the story to the next level.
And this is kind of an example that I think kind of works. And I don't know if they're going to add voice acting to this game. I don't know if that's the situation. But take a look at Disco Elysium. Disco Elysium did not ship with voice acting. And now that it has voice acting, what do you think is the better experience?
Definitely the voice acted one.
Right. So like to me, like this game would have benefited a lot from having voice acting because it would have had characters like Tempest or whatever be a bit more human in that aspect of it. And not to mention like we would have been able to hear Reach speak as a human.
Yes. Yeah.
And that would have been because like the tone, like you get some aspect of the tone from him. But I mean, like, you know, would Arnold Schwarzenegger as the Terminator, would he have been as interesting character if he just didn't talk, period?
Yeah, precisely. So, like, I always put it like this in my reviews, right? Of the when you have voice acting, those actors can bring the words to life in a way that you can never even imagine in your head. And it helps elevate things to the next level. And I do think this would be a great candidate of a game for them to come back in, say, 6 months and be like, hey, we've done a major update. There's now voice acting. Like, because let's remember, I do want to, just while we're on the subject of this game, it was developed by a Ukrainian studio that I'm forgetting the name of right now. But
Sad Cat Studios, right?
Yeah, they had they obviously had challenges during development. We all know about what happened in Ukraine over the last few years.
Yeah,
so I'm sure that there are things they wanted to do with this game that probably they weren't able to do because of the real life situation at the time. They probably had limitations that they otherwise wouldn't have had. And I would be really interested to see, how they improve it in the future, if that is something they look to do. Because, as I said, I actually quite like the majority of the story. I think the game is well written. I think the other presentation elements are genuinely fantastic. I think the gameplay from a combat perspective is good, although repetitive. But if you don't mind repetition, I would say it's still good. Um, yeah, I think that overall, the more I think about this game, the more I play this game, and the more I speak about this game, it's a good video game. It's a good video game that's not quite a great video game because of some of its limitations, I think. And there's Nyx as we are about to move on to our next game, which I believe is actually our final game for today. And I'll let you talk about this one first, Jeff.
Sure. So Tides of Tomorrow is made by the same studio that made Road 96, which I really liked. It was a fun narrative-driven game where your choices led to the failures of certain character arcs to then bleed into the next character arcs. And it made this world that felt like the replayability of that story was super fun to kind of go through. And the character growth was really nice. It didn't feel like they were just borrowing from Life is Strange or the Telltale games. They were giving you these narrative choices in different ways. And the idea behind Tides of Tomorrow is such an interesting one that I'm surprised that no one's done this before. So basically how this works is you play as a Tidewalker, but you're not the only Tidewalker. There are ones that will follow you, and there are ones that have led the path. You live in that path. So the choices that you progress in this game will lead a path behind you that the players who are following you will have to live with those choices and the state of the world. But the path that you have ahead of yourself is the choices made by the players that came before. So if a certain faction has rose to prominency in that town, that's because the choices that the previous player made that you then live in that world from. So you're not just playing this game based off your choices. You're playing this game based off the choices that came before you and the choices you make to then have the player who's following you have to deal with those choices as well. It's a very interesting kind of like snake eats the tail type of thing. And they do such a good job. Like so the player that's dancing behind there was like a vision of the previous player.
Yes.
And you use these visions to then follow the path that they've made and to see the choices that they've made, because some choices will require information that you don't have yet until you see those visions. I really liked Kyla. She was a cool, very, very cool character. I liked her. And you have these different factions that essentially can affect the storyline. You have the Marauders, you have the Reclaimers, and then you have the Mystics. And the Marauders are led by a guy named Oben, who basically controls the ozone that's in the area, which is a chemical formula that you use to kind of cure this disease that's affecting everyone. Like Kyla, for example, is heavily affected by the disease called plastemia, which basically solidifies plastic in your body and eventually turns you into a plastic husk. And so the choices you make will determine how much ozone you get, and how much ozone you get determines whether or not you die, because after every story mission, you lose 2 health segments and ozone only replenishes 1. So I always made it to a point where I would kind of balance my health out after certain missions, and I would have to go and find ozone or make decisions that would get me ozone, but then my retrieval of ozone would make it so whoever follows me doesn't have that same luxury.
Yes, I know. Talking
So
about who follows you, that would
Jordan
be
was following me, and so I left him no Ozen. I was like, Jordan needs to like survive off the land.
yeah. That was kind of yeah. It's interesting because, like you said, you see these little visions of other players, and it's you know you see these things, and you kind of you get a sense for the decisions they made as well, based
Yeah,
on when you make a certain decision and the thing is gone or whatever. It's This is one of the most interesting concepts for this kind of game that I've ever seen, and it works really really well because it's a single player experience that becomes a multiplayer experience through its structure, and it kind of what it allows you to do is like my path is then going to change someone else's playthrough, right? It's going to affect someone else when they play through the game. So it's almost like this massive community thing where you end up following someone and then someone else follows you. And it's, yeah, I think weirdly, the closest we've ever had to this before in a game is probably Death Stranding, where like you know players can build things and leave it for other people and stuff like that. But this is, as Jeff said, you could be following a player who actually made your playthrough a lot harder potentially.
or easier as well too. And like the cool thing about it is like you can follow like your favorite streamers who are playing this game as well too, and see what they're doing.
Yeah.
But it does it a really really neat way, and like the visions kind of change as well too later on in regards to how they affect the story.
Yes.
There's some cool things that they actually kind of do that are pretty solid storytelling devices.
Yeah.
The story itself is basically about kind of uncovering the truth behind plastemia and the cure and whatnot, and
Yeah.
and how that plays into the story, and if you cure it or whatever the case is.
Yeah.
You find scrap that you use to then you can use it to like buy Ozen, but then if you buy the Ozen from the shop, the guy's gonna like, oh, I'm all cleared out the Tide Walker before you took it. Like it's that
Yeah.
kind of thing. And
Yeah.
like it's neat. Like you can kind of pick the factions that you kind of want to align with. You'll have a percentage gauge of how much of the content of those characters you've seen. And it really encourages replayability because you could go through and follow someone else who is very different in their playthrough to affect your world. And you can swap to another player that you want to follow when you're looking at the missions you want to do. It'll tell you what player, it'll tell you if there's Ozen there already. You'll find these like little side events around the maps as well too, where you'll encounter stuff that's not story focused, and then you'll find shopkeepers and other things like that as well too. You get a boat that you can sail around with and you do combat in. Thankfully you're not sailing from one section to the next across big areas. It just teleports you to where you want to go next. And it is an evolution of what they did in Road 96. It feels very much like Road 96. It doesn't feel like Life is Strange or any of those games. It has its own flavor of its choose your own adventure.
Definitely.
And it's like it is a very solid game. I like the characters. I like the vibe, the artwork and stuff.
I was just going to say that I really do like the visual presentation of the game. Makes it feel unique for this style of game. You don't see many kind of choose your own adventures with this art style, I would say.
Yeah, like it's definitely not going to look great. Like it's not going to win any awards for visuals or anything, but I do like the attention to detail. Like when you see plastic floating in the ocean, whatever, it's heaps of it. It's like someone just turned the tap on in a dump. Like it's just it is heaps of plastic like flowing in the water and whatnot. And it's really like when you start getting to the point where the visions kind of start to change, that's when the story gets very interesting.
Yeah. Well,
and,
what I'm going to say is I will keep you updated on my playthrough because I haven't yet finished the game. But if I die and don't complete the game, it's probably Jeff's fault.
yeah.
So, so we'll see how that goes.
Just follow somebody else that's like, see, there's the plastic husks that eventually people turn into.
I'm not going to follow anyone else. I'm committed to going down your path, one way or the other. We'll see what happens.
I can leave you tons of scrap. I got like 400 scrap on me right now, so.
But what I would say, at least from my early impression of what I've played so far, is if you like these kind of choose your own adventure games, this is one of the better ones I've played in recent years, and I really do recommend it.
Yeah, it's neat because like some areas you'll have to stealth through, and then other areas you'll just be welcomed in.
Yeah.
So it definitely changes it up. There is some like racing that I feel is rigged. AI is just a little too intense on it. There's like a fighting section where you have to predict the guy's movements, but if you use the visions, you can see how the previous fighter dodged and counter those attacks. So it's neat. It's if you're looking for something that's evolved, the Life is Strange kind of, narrative choices and stuff in a way that feels unique. It does a very, very good job. Like, for example, like if you're really nice to this guy, the next person who comes through is going to have a much better time talking to him. But if you were to push him in the water, like here, he's an absolute dick the next time.
Yeah. That is funny, and I mean I do look forward to playing more of it, but this episode is now over 2 hours, so I think that for now that will do it for this episode of the Gaming Mix, episode 86. We're closing in on 100. We'll try and get something special arranged for that. I have been talking to a few people about guest appearances on the podcast, as Jeff knows, so if you've enjoyed this show and want to see us talk to some guests and things like that, make sure you subscribe, like, share with all your friends. And for now, carry on gaming. Have a good weekend. Hope you enjoy WrestleMania if you're watching it. And we will see you next time. Goodbye.